Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt as f to right srt_ content. This is a terrifying realm. Darkness here is lethal like a poisonous serpent, poised to attack a location where the most menacing hunter blends with the most harmless being, delivering a fatal strike when one least anticipates. The serpent was lured by the naive amphibian, and now it's vanished vampires, werewolves, specters, cyborgs, marionettes, every horrific entity imaginable courses through this world like lifeblood. Scribing in his journal, our hero states, "I must remain composed always, since the smallest hint of anxiety is sufficient for the shadows to consume you." Or at the very least, that's what he discovered over the past 2 years. Throughout this period, he has only been performing one action, struggling to live. Someone approaches and utters, "Lynn, it's your moment. Go place the lamp outside and prepare to unlock the shop." At this juncture, he gets a task from the program. Place the light fixture outside. Compensation, skeletal currency, skill points, and unadulterated human lifeblood. It's his initial encounter with this application, but he lacks the opportunity to focus on it. He must follow the supervisor's directives immediately. As he unlatches the entranceway, a massive Frankenstein-like being materializes. He welcomes teacher. "You've returned so soon," but he's pondering. "I'm going to perish." That's what he consistently envisioned when he arrived 2 years prior. But he's become accustomed to this now. Frankenstein is hauling someone's remains. Our hero states it commenced 2 years back, that he was rescued by this educator and acquired all medical expertise from him. Even though the days are uneventful, the circumstances aren't too terrible. He unlocks the shop entrance, encountering many gazes. The gloom is very strong there, that it's unfeasible to perceive surroundings, but he feels content nonetheless. Enduring in that realm is deemed a wonder. He ignites the taper and drops a blood droplet. The response repels all the spirits nearby, and with that the storefront is illuminated. He then obtains the compensation from the program, and is astonished that, even though this assignment was straightforward, he acquired such excellent compensation. Instantly, an elderly, toothless female holding a skull materializes before him. "Greetings, young gentleman. Do you possess any unwanted scraps to offer this aged lady?" He's assigned a task. Deliver something trivial to the elderly woman. He replies affirmatively, "I do." Wait, he recognizes it's the slaughterer, and he invariably needs to dismiss her as rapidly as possible. He gives her 2 crimson-pointed quivering items. She expresses gratitude to the lad, and he obtains the compensation from the program. Then she remarks, "You possess a kind spirit. Accept this, it's your recompense," and presents him the orbs from her countenance. The program states he can consent or decline, but if he rejects, he will forfeit 50 points of approval with her. He briefly pauses but states, "Thank you greatly, ill accepted, Alice." She expresses gratitude and departs. Another task is finish fuel. He returns to the establishment he frequents opposite. There's a meat market and a flesh store, and the looks she shot him are from the proprietors of these establishments. There's a cardinal guideline in this realm: never disrespect the night wanderers. He capitalizes on the teacher's distraction and examines the program. All his data is basic, and the summary states he's a delicate, yet brilliant youthful human male who has resided in this reality for a couple years, but one never knows when his end will come. Lynn discerns that this program is very akin to a game. Perhaps as he finishes tasks, he acquires traits and expertise, at the very least, that will improve his likelihood of endurance there. In that instant, Professor Frankenstein opens the entryway and says to Lynn, "I'm stepping out for a bit. I will return in 2 days, manage the shop. And do not allow anyone to pilfer anything from this location." His moniker is Blood Soul, and in a battle data, the network simply states, "Do not antagonize him." Lynn, slightly apprehensive, says, "Understood. Anything else I should remember?" Blood Soul instructs him if they possess currency, acquire the funds; if not, obtain something of comparable worth. And if they lack funds and are unwilling to compensate, utilize this, giving him Blood Soul's dagger. The network cautions that it is exceptionally keen and effortlessly slices through tissue and spirit. However, the more you employ it, the more it hungers for things, then simply expresses gratitude before departing. Blood Soul adds, "Do not neglect to nourish the small infant." After securing the establishment, he is not consumed in a while. He obtains the identical task from the network Blood Soul cautions regardless of what you detect outside. Never exit the vicinity of the spirit lantern. Should someone request your aid, disregard them. Secure the entrances after dark. And regardless of who beckons you, remain silent should someone enter. Eliminate them all. Understood? Lin states these 2 days will be agonizing. Position at the table with the weapon. He merely awaits the moment. The instant the clock chimes, there is a rapping at the entrance. Pardon me, is the proprietor present? He nears the entrance and observes the individuals, spotting a small female child clutching a plaything. The program assigns him a task: assist in mending the damaged plaything. Within the program's attribute display, it cautions of a lost spirit from the veil, searching for her maternal figure with a plaything as her companion. Anyone who pilfers her plaything will meet their demise within her. With weeping eyes, the female child implores SR_content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. With ease, he reattaches the doll's limb, gaining numerous points within the framework. He provides her with a treatment for the doll daily for a week, and it should be mended. He applies the remedy to the doll's appendage, and it writhes in pain once more, rushing towards the girl's arm, requesting to depart, then gazes at her state. 10 for rehabilitation, 30 for stitching, 70 for medication, totaling 110 skull tokens. My gratitude is immense. I hope for your return. The girl appears apprehensive, retrieves some coins from her pouch, and tosses them to him. I possess only 20, she declares. He pauses briefly, then states you remain indebted 90 coins. You could offer a body part as security. It is fine, I will perform it without charge for you. The girl recoils a step. Fearful, I still possess 10. Fantastic. Your debt is now 80, she states. SRT_content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Unwind when you acquire the funds. You can repurchase it. She weeps and states okay. The toy utters no mama. Do not do it, but the orb has already been extracted and placed in a container. He then obtains numerous objects and capital from the network. He glances back, all complete. Kindly return to Sanguine Blood's apothecary. I will be delighted to assist you again. She departs sobbing, stating she will never return. I desire my mother. Lin observes this response, acknowledges, and the network assigns him a task. The blood marionette is searching for its maternal figure. 8 her locate it. 200 approval with the young lady. 100 with the plaything and a unique prize. He contemplates, slightly gazing at some strands, some auditory appendages on a dish. Those are a few of the objects he has been acquiring from the network. He is certain that small female has performed far more terrifying actions. Oh, all right, SRT_content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT_content. Creatures typically avoid assaulting him, particularly since if they do engage, he can harness spiritual energy to subdue them. However, this method is ineffective against exceptionally tainted beings. Ultimately, it's a lawless domain. The swine traverses the entrance and enters the establishment. Confounded, that elderly woman. She extracted one of my orbs due to refuse. The next instance I encounter her outside. He cuts himself off as he settles at the furniture, whereas blood cells summon him immediately. I require a new optic, and he'll compensate with quarry I recently captured. Then replies, my instructor departed to attend to certain matters. Should you require anything, simply converse with me. He obtains the assignment from the framework. Aid the porcine beast locate a new optic. The hog gazes at Leno. It's you. The alert indicated an escalation to 89%. They exchange silent gazes. The swine then utters okay. Then proceed. He gathers some objects, arranges them, stating we possess human orbs, porcine optics, orbs of deceased chiropteran phantoms, and marionette oculars. Each possesses a value. Which do you desire? The hog observes them all, contemplates, briefly glances at Lin, stating, "Your optic is superior, I believe." Lin's composure crumbles, the indicator ascends to 91. He inquires, "Mine?" The swine retorts, "Why not yours?" Lin experiences slight unease, but abruptly extracts his own oculars. The system issues a life-threatening warning, declaring organ loss. Orb in hand, he declares, "This one here commands 200 cranial currency. No reimbursements are offered regardless of bodily incompatibility." The swine is stunned, incredulous, unbelievable, utterly inconceivable. When that elderly woman removed my orb, I was writhing in agony, but he, a mere mortal, didn't even pause to extract his own eye. With that, the emergency falls to 50. He remains there gazing at the hog. With the orb in his palm, the swine contemplates. I comprehend he's not human. He was altered by one of those entities. From blood corpuscle, then moves closer with the orb. The swine states, "I don't desire yours. I crave my own eyeball if you don't possess it." Disregard it, the emergency plummets to 45. Lin replaces his eye and utters, "Your orbs accompany me." The swine is astonished. He reveals it to him and inquires, "Is it this one here?" The swine questions, "Where did you acquire it?" Lin informs him that this morn he encountered a benevolent lady who presented him this plaything. The swine appears perplexed, the slaughterer. "She's a beast capable of severing my noggin, and she offered my orb to a chemist trainee. For what purpose? Minus 30 sanity for the hog." Lin simply gazes at him, while the predicament has diminished to 20. The boar inquires, "She presented it to you, and you are going to return it to me." Lin states, "Am not returning it to you. Am bartering it to you. The going rate is 200 skull tokens." The hog comprehends and concurs, "All right. I'll acquire it then." The emergency is now at 10, and Lin queries, "Do you wish to do this now or on the surgical platform?" The swine states he desires to do it here. Contemplating, no individual possesses the valor to recline on that surgical platform. Lin instructs him to place his head on the surface and remain motionless. If it causes discomfort, he can yell. The hog quips, "Yell in agony." Then SR_content equals, "Taking a life is not a challenge." Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_content. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_content. He then inquires about his departure, and Lin states that he is free to leave, but the system alerts Lin that he has initiated a hidden task. From the pig head, the peculiar stomach. As compensation, Lin will be granted the visual diagnostic skill. Then Lin requests a pause. The pig questions the issue. Lin calmly clarifies, "I've just discovered the issue and must inform you. If I don't, I forfeit my title as a doctor." The pig sits down and says, "All right, I trust you temporarily, but any deception will not be tolerated." He requests to examine his pulse and subsequently acquires diagnostic expertise. The pig becomes restless, questioning the matter, then pauses and states, "It's critical." The pig trembles with fear. SR content equals, "Taking a life is not a challenge." Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_content. After a month, Lin contemplates. A poor dinner would not induce suffering for so long. He then inquires, "When did you last attempt procreation? Do you harbor any unusual desires, such as group activity or employing atypical instruments?" The swine exclaims, "I question you will repeat that." Lin replies, "All right. I will not reiterate that subsequent query. The last instance you were procreating in your nether regions. Did you experience a ripping sensation?" The swine yells, "I am weary of you. Clarify, for me, precisely what this ripping sensation in my lower portion signifies." Jolting him, then answers, "Please compose yourself. I am solely inquiring for your welfare. You do not desire to acquire a persistent ailment, do you?" The swine takes a seat. "All right, I will grant you a final opportunity," then draws near and states, "Judging by all you have shared, it would appear you are not undergoing a typical gestation. It presents as though you ingested something possessing unusual properties, triggering a transformation within your physique, subsequently resulting in an extrauterine pregnancy." The man reiterates, "Extrauterine pregnancy." Lin inquires, "Recently have you felt full? Despite consuming much, you have hollow eyes, blanched complexion, weak heartbeat. These are all potential indicators. When a malevolent entity inhabits you, place your hand here. This is a purification solution. It will determine if you are occupied by a dark force. The man draws near and inhales, then submerges his hand, and entities begin to materialize. Witnessing this, the man recoils his hand, sensing something stirring within his abdomen. Lin seizes a skillet and strikes his stomach. SRT content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_ content, but it went directly to my stomach. So it's not as if I consumed it. Besides, I've only devoured pork and human flesh. Lin comforts him. All right, let's examine your insides. Accompany me. The swine follows Lin to the surgery room. What's this regarding? The hog wonders. Envisioning the medical theater, the boar is already prone on the cot, and Lin's gaze intensifies, frightened. The sow inquires, "Are you certain you are going to conduct this procedure? Wouldn't it be preferable to perform a new assessment?" Lin states that reluctance would be the primary issue. He'll verify if there's a phantom within when he accesses the belly. It would be simpler if he could merely excise the apparition, but sadly that's impossible. The pig starts shouting, "I've always been the slaughterer." SR_ content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srt.w as f to right SRT_ content. By now the swine is already begging, "Stop this, release me. Let me out," but Lin states it's too late. Absolutely not. He would never let a client suffer. He's going to do this. After much cutting and blade work, Lin says congratulations. It was an effortless delivery, a bloody and developed infant. The hog looks at his stomach and then begins stitching. Now might not be the ideal moment to mention this, but I must inform you. The full price of the procedure. It's 300 skeletal coins. Since this is my initial time, I will provide a 20 reduction for this. It's 240. The boar yells, saying I don't care. Complete it quickly, then answers very well. But the fetus so is 40 more skeletal coins. Would you like stitches using wool, cotton metal, or maybe twine? The hog asks. The material is irrelevant. It could be hemp thread. He concurs then. Simply await me to thread this needle here, and he'll commence. He hands over the needle and closes the wound. Fully finished. He applies a liquid to the injury and the swine awakens. Felicitations. The procedure concluded without complications. By finishing the hidden mission, he accumulated additional expertise, and the hog obtained an extra 200. Apprehension of him. Observing the being emerging from the stomach, he utters, "Despite her affliction by malevolent entities, if you nurture her properly, perhaps she might develop into a robust youngster." However, the swine is already escaping. Retreating, Lin attempts to caution him. "Sir, you left your female offspring." The swine claims he abandoned her as compensation too. Lin hurries to stop him, stating, "This is a drugstore. You cannot abandon an infant here unaccompanied, considering all she has endured." Nevertheless, the hog simply departs. Lin ponders, "What shall I do?" Well, he will attend to her briefly. Perhaps when the educator comes back, he will have her as a snack with his beverage. The being is already quivering. Then he applies a healing tonic to his eye. To invigorate him, accesses the system to check its contents, and his profile has been altered. Bloodsaw disciple many sense his wickedness, and it appears he is slowly acquiring his instructors. Deranged behavior. Our lad is skeptical, thinking I'm evil. I have consistently been a compassionate soul. Afterward, he utilizes his credits. I possess 4 enhancement points. Let's allocate them to Constitution, because my main objective is survival. Then he senses his physique strengthening. But unexpectedly, the creature that emerged was already being devoured by another, and then rescues it, thinking internally, "Nearly overlooked this. What shall I do with you presently?" He glances and observes within the framework. Malformed newborn entity, feminine sex. Tier 2, then the system presents a hidden task. The malevolent energy within is tainting its form, and the more time that elapses, the more horrifying it will develop. He has 4 choices. He can transform her into lamp fuel, offer her to the beings in the backyard, maintain her as an example, or await the swine to retrieve her. Our protagonist believes the initial 3 are excessively inhumane. The sole detail in the compensation is pending evaluation, which is somewhat perplexing, but it has to be a rather substantial payment. He relaxes in his seat and obtains 10 virtue points. for being a decent individual than he recalls. Oops, I neglected to nourish the beings in the rear. He places her in the container and remarks, "You remain here, I'll attend to a matter," and proceeds to the back of the establishment few. Fortunately, the program indicated this, or else I would not have recalled it. He removes the cover, perspiring slightly, dispenses a substance within, and forfeits 10 fondness for whatever is present. But he did provide its sustenance. Our fellow is pondering. What is the small entity contained within? My instructor never made reference to it, and I've been present for 2 years. It's preferable to remain inquisitive. SRT content equals. Taking a life is not a challenge. Rest of your SRT content with open output.srtw as f to right SRT content. Greetings to our establishment. The program displays a 99% scorched malevolent entity, harboring significant animosity toward everything. That's exquisite, the being exclaims. I desire an alteration to my visage. The program initiates the Scorched Spectre Countenance Shift task, bestowing 50 skeletal currency units. Our associate states, very well, proceed. Taking a life is not difficult. Eliminating someone is simple, if indeed you possess the necessary mental disposition for such an act. Prior to his death penalty, Gary Ray Bowles, the notorious Interstate 95 murderer, participated in a discussion revealing a disturbing absence of guilt, speaking nonchalantly about the existences he ruined. It presents a troubling recurring theme. The outcomes were rather exquisite. Altering a visage is quite comparable. It resembles manipulating bread dough. The crucial element is flexibility and springiness, neither excessively arid nor excessively moist. I must exert the appropriate pressure. To mend the countenances, the mummy acquires 10 dread. Link commences, he strikes it, compresses it, rotates it, elevates it, and yanks it aside. The mummy is astonished, forfeiting 20 sanity units. He seizes the cranium, positions it upon the surface, and gazes at it. Something appears amiss within this establishment. This particular shop feels off in some way. The maternal figure inquires about his actions. Well, this specific youngster possesses unfortunate aesthetics, and as a medical practitioner I desire to enhance her visage. The mother remarks on his unconventional method, believing he won't mend it using this approach. Then he inadvertently applies excessive pressure, comprehending he is crushing her skull by degrees. My apologies, an accident occurred. I exerted an undue amount of force. He observes the unsettling grin of the person. Forfeiting 20 sanity points, the mother contemplates. I suspected Bloodsaw entrusted his shop to someone. I merely didn't envision someone more deranged. Does this imply I shall transform into something grotesque, a being akin to those entities in the rear? He perceives a noise and questions Bloodsaw's arrival. Sacrificing 40 sanity, but our individual emerges, expressing regret for his tardiness and honing the edge. He inquires about the issue at hand, but frightened, the maternal figure fled. The program indicates mission unsuccessful, but he acquired 400 points of dread from the being. Felicitations on obtaining his initial customer with intense panic, gaining 100 monetary units for the accomplishment. Our protagonist ponders the entity's apprehension towards him. He remained courteous and grinned continuously. Peculiar individual, nonetheless unimportant. Let's attend to this youngster initially. After a period, he eventually triumphs. Lin expresses contentment with the outcome, stating, he possessed exceptional dexterity prior to traversing this realm. I merely hadn't anticipated utilizing those aptitudes here. But then he observes an additional optic situated amidst her brow. Remarkable, a third ocular organ. Toxin emanated from it. He cautions her to refrain from displaying that eye in the center of her forehead. Taking a life is not difficult. Eliminating someone is simple, if indeed you possess the necessary mental disposition for such an act. Prior to his death penalty, Gary Ray Bowles, the notorious Interstate 95 murderer, participated in a discussion revealing a disturbing absence of guilt, speaking nonchalantly about the existences he ruined. It presents a troubling recurring theme. Avoid comprehension, he poses a threat. Our protagonist gazes, pondering his humanity. It's his initial encounter with one in 2 years. Strangely, the lamp's response suggests the man possesses immense power. The cloaked individual requests medical aid, specifically battle and restorative elixirs. The system initiates the task. 500 gold to mend his wounds. The dilemma is, failure occurs if our hero is slain by him. Enter, please. Our character contemplates aloud. Unfortunate timing as the man takes a seat, remarking on the unexpected encounter with his kin. Within this shadowy realm subsequently, the system triggers a same-race connection. Severing this bond will result in his demise. Greetings, what ails you? You must heal our protagonist, he declares. He possesses at minimum human characteristics. Their motivations are typically less complex to grasp. The male individual rises to a standing position, displaying his upper limb adorned with a violet object. Its condition is unfavorable. It pulsates autonomously. The huntsman delivers a statement. The apparatus concludes its initial assessment. A dark lepidopteran toxin is eroding his appendage. Lin relays this information, eliciting a response. Astonishing, you discerned its nature. I misjudged your capabilities, the man states. An individual in crimson attire proceeds. Deceived me and employed this noxious substance. Fortuitously, my physical state was compromised. This is preferable. I shall seek her whereabouts. I shall provide assistance, our protagonist declares, contemplating the method of treating this individual. His departure is contingent on treatment. He inquires about the properties of the toxin, which is a concentrated form of all the animosity in the shadowy realm, and incredibly destructive to existence. Therapy is suggested with osteochondroma. I must operate on your appendage. Perspiring, the huntsman inquires. What are your medical qualifications? Unwind, I possess sufficient skill. It's my second procedure, Lin responds anxiously. The hunter mutters, is there another facility nearby? Unlikely. If another opened its doors, my instructor would obliterate it. It's prohibited to establish a secondary facility here. The man is hesitant if he trusts Lin, but the anomaly on his limb continues throbbing. I'll have to believe you. Just proceed immediately. He declares. Our protagonist prepares his instruments. All right, I'll commence. This area doesn't resemble a medical establishment, but rather a butchery. And this emaciated individual is unsettling me. He mumbles, inquiring about the need for numbing medicine. Lin inquires if anesthetic would hinder his response time. A courageous person never utilizes it, the pursuer states. Excellent, because I too have never employed it. Then pierce his limb with a sharp object. Alarmed, the stalker halts Lin. Remain composed, this is the commencement. Lin replies, stating it was merely a trial. Why was it painful? The pursuer asks if he may proceed, but contemplates, confounded. Undoubtedly, it causes discomfort. This youngster possesses some abnormality, but he would not be foolish enough to act. Against the monster slayer, our protagonist seizes a new instrument. What in the world are you performing? The stalker requests tranquility. I am merely finding the appropriate sized implement. These two I am temporarily placing on you. You cannot place them in an alternate location. Not upon my shoulder, the pursuer inquires. The individual reveals a pair of instruments. I was merely verifying their sharpness adequacy. Dullness inflicts significant pain, one must be certain. He clarifies. Remain composed, however. Discomfort arises solely upon the blade's entry. Full extraction alleviates the suffering completely. Therefore, be at ease. I am ensuring proper implement utilization. The supernatural adversary contemplates. This person affects professionalism vainly. Yet I sense malicious intent. Then he utters, averting his gaze. Cease your procrastination and proceed. Further delay will result in your demise, he cautions. Remain calm. There is no cause for alarm. The man states, producing a fiery kiln and subjecting the instruments to heat. What is the purpose of this action? The demon hunter inquires. Experiencing a minor lapse in reason, I am merely sterilizing the edges. The poison of the dark lepidopteran is excessively brutal. To keep it from spreading to other locations, bodily areas, it must be liquefied. That's the reason the instruments are heated. Lin clarifies, but have you performed this previously? The supernatural eliminator inquires. Our friend states he has done it to extract swine bristles. Stunned, the specialist exclaims. Disregard that, let's simply commence. Then presents a chopping block. Why the appearance of meal preparation? The entity exterminator asks, growing apprehensive. It's a necessary component of the process. It's solely to collect blood and limb fragments. Mid-procedure, our companion sedates him. Darn it, if another location existed. At least 100 meters away. ID escape this nightmare. Utilize the instrument now. The fiend dispatcher commands Lin. With a crazed expression states, all right. Let's begin, and initiates his assault, acquiring proficiency with edged weapons, while the demon slayer emits cries of agony, experiencing a sensation of being ripped asunder, and his core is being incinerated. But Lin remains composed amidst the fiery swords. If discomfort arises, you may request a numbing agent. It is all right, our companion states. The man with tearful eyes utters, huh. You have commenced without my noticing. I perceive nothing, Lin remarks truly. So could you perhaps refrain from damaging my furniture? Your grip is excessively forceful, you are crushing it. My strength is excessive, I cannot apply gentle pressure. I will provide restitution and cover the expenses. Just proceed with the incision, the man urges. The onslaught commenced, severing all tissue. Hold on a moment. Cease desist, the man implores. However, it is too tardy, I anticipated your intervention, but you failed to do so, darn it. He shouts, literally striking his head upon the timber. What is the meaning of this? If I proceed slowly, you are displeased. If I cut swiftly, you grumble. Now that I am midway through, you request that I cease. This is not a medical procedure. This is torment. For what reason are you cutting so thinly? Just tear it out. You are preparing noodles, it seems. What is your desire? Make haste and conclude. He insists, that is it. For what reason did you not articulate more clearly? You wish me to terminate with a solitary slice, then inquires what is implied by a lone cut. The huntsman ponders, it is a rapid incision. However, if I sever an artery, your demise is possible. I would prefer to avoid that method. Being a physician, my clientele are akin to offspring to me. I cannot permit their expiration with a basic remedy. Lin clarifies, naturally. One could always select sedation as an alternative. Yes, simply commence the procedure immediately. Then I shall never revisit this location. The gentleman states, but inform him, please. Have no fear once I have completed this task. I assure you a return visit will occur later. The unfortunate man lies there salivating profusely. Our man created a substantial mound of flesh from his limb. He examines his backside. Was this the work of Satan? He mumbles while gathering the stones nearby. Our man applies a strong alcoholic solution to the injury. The lesion is now purified, he declares. I implore you, sir, kindly release me now, I beseech you. The man begs, wait just a moment. There remains a crucial element yet to be completed. I object to knowing any further, the man exclaims. But our man reveals the skeletal structure to him, adorned with a small heart illustration upon it. The man expresses astonishment. What have you done to me? He inquired with rage. Did you derive such pleasure? Our protagonist responds naively. The pursuer unleashes insults and attempts an assault. But our hero evades. Listen, I am endeavoring to rescue you, behaving so brazenly. I forbid you from ending my life prematurely. A patient cannot abandon treatment mid-session. Our protagonist asserts resolutely. The fiend hunter expresses disbelief. He brandishes his weapon. Cease this trifling. Conclude this now, he commands. A projectile is discharged skyward. The subsequent image reveals the unfortunate soul bound. For what reason am I restrained indeed? The explanation is simple. I suspect you will be unable to endure the agony, and subsequently you desire to inflict further harm. Demise is inconsequential, but if struck, how shall I complete my procedure? Our protagonist clarifies, if I dreaded discomfort, you would be deceased. This is superfluous. Not to bring up that. You believe some metal fragments can restrain me. You are quite gullible, the man counters. But then Lin was abrading his skeleton. Goodness, what are you performing? The man exclaims, assist me. Our character comforts him, merely scraping the skeleton. Become I informed you, it would be agonizing. Why are you scraping my skeleton? The man inquires. Didn't I instruct you to endure it like a courageous man? If you are brave, you shouldn't dread discomfort. Simply persevere, it will conclude shortly. Then answers, the man implores. Provide me with anesthetic. I cannot endure further. Anesthetic is ineffective. Now how should I administer it to your skeleton? Simply persevere, it will conclude shortly. Possessing 2 additional proficiency in blade expertise. Abruptly the individual escapes and declares, I shall never place confidence in you again. Our protagonist seizes the Chicago plaything, retracts it, and positions it upon the individual's countenance. Should you attempt movement once more, and fail to comply with the process, I shall terminate you, he cautions. The individual expresses remorse. My apologies, friend. I shall refrain from further action satisfactory. For if you persist, I too shall not cease. You are tarnishing my standing. Sufficient of this, cease squandering my time. I shall conclude this definitively. Our protagonist states, brandishing the cutting tool. Inquire what is transpiring. What grievance do you harbor towards me? The pursuer inquires, forfeiting 20 mental stability. Remain. It is opportune to utilize the substantial solution to resolve all. Our protagonist exclaims, "Let's go." Cease to see implores. The cutting tool nears abruptly. A young lady enters the establishment. Correct location, anyone present. Seeking restorative elixirs. She utters anxiously all of a sudden. Lower limb, seized assistance needed. Aid, she hollers. Observing our man tool in hand behind the individual. She shrieks in anguish, then gazes greets. Desire potions. Must conclude with this client. Then procure them for you. Distressed damsel. Acquiring 70 dread, the system states. Fright induced. Triggered mental affliction. Last transitioned enthusiastic to timid. Fresh designation, client trepidation. Linda expressed astonishment. Hold on a moment. How did my presence become frightening? Simply by observation. I presented the elixirs and offered a friendly grin, my friend. This framework continues to provide unusual compensations. Directing a harsh look at the tracker attempting departure. You are endeavoring to escape. The mission has not yet concluded. We have returned. The man strikes in agony. Our companion offers a gentle tap on his shoulder blade. It is finished. All the poisons that infiltrated your skeleton are now entirely eradicated. Simply await your skeletal structure and musculature to restore somewhat, and your limb will be fully functional once more. However, the unfortunate fellow rendered my patron unconscious. Regain consciousness, good sir. Awaken, the structure communicates with specialized techniques. You disabled a celebrated legendary fiend pursuer. Compensation, the affliction infliction potency amplifies by 5%. The anguish you generate utilizing diverse implements. After a while, the huntsman awakens. His location unknown, he rises swiftly, firing 2 shots. Stay back, he exclaims, his rationality fading once more. Lynn by the barrier urges him to relax. Compose yourself, she says, I have treated your wounds. Observe, all is well now. Release those unpleasant recollections. The man gestures towards Lynn. Contemplate. The essence of that moth demon truly vanished. This feels akin to a fantasy. She reassures him, indeed it is. The paralytic agent that afflicted you is purged. The issue stem from the restoration of your skeletal and muscular structure. Thus I administered the finest elixir from our inventory, coupled with your exceptional physical prowess. All progressed flawlessly. The sole complication was a minor void remained in the center, so I supplemented with additional flesh. Fear not, your physique will readily accept it. The gentleman appears perplexed. Hold on. What is this swine flesh? You claimed you executed everything flawlessly. You inserted a portion of pig into me. He then replies, well, it's an unusual methodology, is it not? However, the outcome is impeccable. Should you encounter any difficulties later, you may return here, and I will assist you. The huntsman says, coming back to this place. Do you believe I desire to revisit here? The likelihood of a catastrophe has surged. Well, my customer, although the procedure was unconventional, possessing the moth toxin, contaminating your whole being, tainting your entire system, leading to demise, would have been considerably more dreadful. Within this realm of gloom and despair, survival outweighs all other considerations. The critical situation escalated to 99%. The man was maintaining composure, but with soothing utterances. The peril diminished. He exhales deeply. You are correct in this realm. Existence is paramount above all else. He faces Lynn simply for your survival. That is a significant accomplishment. Your agonizing techniques are exceptional. Thank you, then, states the pursuer. Lifts him. Do you believe him commending you, youngster? Possess. Have you conducted any other procedures in your lifetime? Our fellow raises 3 digits. I vow I executed a cesarean delivery on an individual, and the parent and offspring were overjoyed. They even lauded me, the chap, considering his bone scraping compared to a birthing operation, concedes that his injuries have truly mended. Recalling his prior terror, he gazes at Lynn, uttering, hey, nobody can learn of the gossip I collapsed here. Comprehend, be guaranteed, no individual will discover. Lynn states, simply inform me the total expenditure. There is no possibility of my return to this location. You have no obligation to compensate. Consider this a kindness from a fellow ethnic member. I desire to witness you frequent our shopping center again, sometime in the days ahead. Our associate recognizes the need for camaraderie with this person. Consequently, the program grants him 500 tokens. The fellow doubts these praises will provide him any assistance. Simply disregard all occurrences here. despite shared heritage. It alters nothing. I travel solo and will never accompany a youth like you to partake in the journey beside me. He dons his cap in granting you this opportunity. Depart from here an individual like yourself lacking abilities. You mend my injuries, and I cannot mistreat you, simply because you do not desire compensation. He unveils his possessions by opening his jacket. Observe and select an item of your choosing. Our protagonist, intrigued and curious, inspects the objects. Let me see. Which object shall I pick? This particular one appears appealing. A hexed firearm from a famed monster slayer, bewitched with 6 automatically replenishing projectiles. Our hero enthusiastically grasps the weapon's hilt. Your gaze, young man, like a shark, yearning to seize the finest possession I own. I have recently located your armaments. Excellent. Our protagonist responds affirmatively. Naturally, they possess impressive qualities. What number of creatures have you slain using these? The huntsman clarifies 0, not a 1. I have not employed them to eliminate a solitary beast. He confesses fires shots towards Lin, forming a ring upon the barrier. They might appear stylish, yet both possess a critical defect, and you likely observe this. They consistently miss their objective, regardless of the trajectory beyond their aesthetic function. They lack utility. What is your meaning? In that case, I do not desire them. Then objects, yet the huntsman persists. As an individual of virtue and principle, having selected them, you cannot decline them, or such would be disrespectful in my view. You possess an opportunity, accept them, or I will act. Our protagonist contemplates, then chooses to accept them, believing he will discard them subsequently. Wise decision. Be aware that owing to their hex, you cannot willingly relinquish them. They can be transferred solely through equitable trade. Fortunately, your fervent yearning drew them. As jinxes seek a recipient for transference, it is challenging. You're attempting to deceive me, it's quite obvious. This operation required considerable effort, and I'm indebted to you for a significant kindness. As a supplementary bonus, I'll provide a reminder this evening. Regardless of what you perceive or how frightened you become, remain indoors and avoid opening that entrance. It appears an unusual event transpired here. Lin inquires if it's a beast or something similar. However, the individual vanishes into the darkness. It's preferable for you to remain unaware, I believe. If you endure and survive until morning, perhaps we shall encounter each other once more. Lin contemplates how his instructor made a similar remark prior to departing this evening. He must exercise significantly more caution. There's a half-hour remaining until nightfall. No guest should arrive during this period. He gazes at the small being on the earth. Currently level 7, this youngster continues progressing. Soon it will become challenging to manage. He then employs the Windy City plaything, narrowly avoiding the intended mark. The anxiety in the orbs is palpable. It truly lacks a forceful impact. Unbelievable he persists in discharging, instilling apprehension within the entity. The light source commences to fade. Our leading figure dashes towards the entrance, seals it, and exhales a breath of respite. Now with the illuminator deactivated, the true trial commences, as it implies any individual, even lacking authorization, can ingress his dwelling of their own volition. The mechanism initiates the undertaking. Sleepless evening endure until daybreak, proffering 500 tokens and a unique prize. Within his chamber, our hero is already beneath the bed, equipped and prepared to confront whatever emerges. Scan activity thus far. My sole desire is to outlast this evening. The clock strikes 12. A visitor raps at the entrance already. Unlock. It's me. Blood corpuscle, an evil entity, pursues me. Assist me. Hold on. The educator returns. Our lead character walks to the portal carefully. Then he abruptly strikes the barrier. You didn't even verify and assaulted me already. The stranger complains if I was outside. My instructor would not pause to do the identical. Furthermore, he would not return at this time. As they debate, he detects a sound outdoors. Our hero inclines to hear closely, but unexpectedly arms seize him, making him descend into madness. He fights as the graspers clutch him firmly, but he succeeds in escaping by using the strands from the wicked apparition. As the clutches withdraw, he ponders if they are living or deceased, but opts for caution as the wiser path, and delivers the concluding strikes. You vanquished the corporeal trickster and acquired 100 experience points. I persevered and lived to tell the tale. But the beast arrived promptly at midnight. The night's remaining mysteries remain veiled. While tidying the program issues two cautions. The highest level creature is drawing near, and danger levels have reached their peak. Our hero, already positioned at the entrance, ponders if it's the entity they discussed. He bides his time, and the appendage begins moving. Abruptly, he finds himself yanked forcefully. He seizes his blade, detecting a foul stench. Upon observation, two massive orbs gaze at him. He swiftly conceals himself once more, but the orb is directly behind the portal, observing him. Curse this beast's powerful pulsating heart. Its lapping noises are deafeningly audible. It's somewhat endearing until the caress grazes his visage. No, that's not remotely charming. Disregard the fact he forfeits 40 sanity units quivering. I cannot succumb to fear if I do. I will be devoured. The beast brushes his cheek gently. Physician, I have located you. Unlatch the portal. I have a dental affliction. A dental malady is the creature not present to consume me, but to obtain an oral examination. Our central figure replies, our modest facility does not admit visitors after dark. Those are the established guidelines, and I must adhere to them. But the being issues a warning. Grant entry, or I will devour you unwillingly. He yields greetings. My esteemed patron, this establishment will attend to you level. Lineage and capabilities undetermined. The monstrosity laments about a dental discomfort. Incapable of consuming, have no fear. I can undoubtedly provide assistance. A dental discomfort is a minor issue. It will be brief, he reassures himself, thinking it's awful, but it's a customer like any other. Just another typical day. As he nears the beast's maw, he initiates the task assigned by the framework. To alleviate the oral pain, providing 1,000 gold pieces, 50 points of goodwill with the enigmatic entity, and 0 repercussions. He contemplates naturally. There will be no consequences. There will be nothing remaining of my being. Now he must depend on his healing abilities. The sole obstacle is the lack of illumination. The creature's appendage extends to seize his own orbs, then utilizes the ocular sphere to brighten the area. Gratitude, now visibility is optimal. The interior is replete with decaying organisms. The selection within is rather extraordinary. He discovers a fabled weapon, impaired yet still present. It's a projectile from an uncharted realm that descended into the abyss of shadows, bestowed with divine energy, potent against paranormal entities and fiends. I discovered this spear akin to the huntsman's tool. It's otherworldly. Furthermore, the holy aspect inflicts such agony. The beast urges him to extract it. Lin is startled within the monster. There's a plethora of curative objects. Diabolic eyes, physician, hexed mender physicians, or perhaps they all attempted to address this spear. At the final apothecary, it visited. But as hexed beings, they were unable to mend it. But I am mortal. Divine energy shouldn't impact me. He grazes it, and his digit becomes violent. Oh, the colossal being is gazing at me. Phew, this is my opportunity. I will commence extraction. The entity extends appendages inward for aid, and he successfully dislodges it, acquiring 20 points of goodwill nonetheless. Significant discomfort persists. Lim believes I am in grave danger, and without composure, I face consumption. Fear not, I will provide healing. He consoles, disregarding the frightening visage. He hastens to his establishment, retrieving vials, and returns administering medication to the tooth space, clarifying that the spear's lingering energy induces the agony. The obstacle is the excessive blood. He contemplates how to proceed. Abruptly, he notices a tentacled individual. This appendage is required, for it is necessary to mitigate your suffering. He severs it without awaiting a reply. The being inquires about his actions. He is present with a needle. Illuminate the room. Why observe me? He gestures to the eye ascend. He attempts to penetrate the tooth. It is constricted. I must delve deeper. Where are the other instruments? He locates a drill and commences insertion. The being writhes in agony. You must persevere a bit longer. He consoles as he bores. The discomfort eventually diminishes. I intended to devour you, but the entity is now content. The ache is absent. Dismiss it. The medication has taken effect. Currently, we simply must cleanse and mend. He requested a pail, and it is delivered. He sanitizes and requests metal. He lacks sufficient resources. The entity proposes to retrieve it, consumes him, and flees in the subsequent scene. They encounter a barrier. The dilemma is, Lin discerned the barrier is composed of iron, not steel. The entity gapes its maw. discharges a beam that unlocks everything within. It unveils a steel puppet, possessing formidable combat prowess. Lin serenely departs the orifice and observes the puppet, recollecting one such caused chaos in the establishment, and his superior battled for 10 hours to expel it. The entity protrudes its appendage, already pulverizing the puppet, then leaps, delivering a devastating strike. Lin is astonished. I cannot comprehend the level of either combatant, but the disparity in strength is immense. The entity inquires if it is sufficient, or else it shall persist, then declares it is adequate and requests aid in repairing it. Activating the instruments is flawless. The blades are honed to being gripping, Lin states. It's exceptional, truly pleased. Our companion is perspiring, but he acquired 11 cranium points and garnered 50. Approval. Give this recording a positive rating, fellows. Your opinion on this fresh Mr. Lin? I was unaware his moniker was also Lin. I recognized mid-task the resemblance to Lin from the deity's demon. However, I hadn't envisioned an identical appellation. Thoughts on our deranged physician? He appears amicable until his descent into madness. Undoubtedly, he'll inflict harm upon this unfortunate soul. He's excessively joyful. You comprehend your actions. My sibling. Engage the chime to avoid missing the subsequent segment. Observe the rationale.